Randy Thompson K5ZD is no stranger to high-profile contests, but today he's here to talk about something different. The Worldwide Award, or WWA, is quickly becoming one of the most followed events in amateur radio. Designed to bring together the largest numbers of countries and operators outside of the big-name contests, WWA has grown rapidly since its debut in January 2024. With this next sprint edition just around the corner, from June 30th to July 6th, Randy joins us to share what makes this event special, how it's organized, and why it's capturing the attention of both hunters and activators around the world. We're grateful to DX Engineering for supporting conversations like this one. Whether you're building your first station or preparing for a global radio event like WWA, DX Engineering has the gear, knowledge, and support to help you do it right. Learn more at dxengineering.com. It's great to have you here with a solo appearance, Randy.
Thanks, glad to be here, and this is a fun topic to cover.
Well, I'm looking forward to diving into it again. As most people know, I did talk to the founders of the WWA from Italy, and we kind of got the conversation started. But I'm anxious to hear from you, somebody who has operated it and understands it really well from an operator standpoint. So before we jump into your experience, why don't you give the audience your sense of what the WWA is and why it was created in the first place?
WWA was created by IW1FRU and his team under the hamaward.cloud domain. And as they were preparing for WRTC in Italy, they wanted a way that they could collect all the QSO data in real time and then be able to present it in interesting ways to the chasers. Obviously, the WRTC competitors can't see this. And so that January 3 years ago, they wanted to do a test drive. And so they invited all of the WRTC teams to come participate as activators and let people chase them. And it would just be a smoke test for the technology. And so I participated in that. We were using the call sign N1W. A lot of other countries around the world have a little bit easier time of getting special calls, so they were getting a lot of different calls that ended in WWA so that it was very clear which ones were activator stations. But in the end, think of it as a big scavenger hunt. There's a certain number of stations around the world that have been designated as the activators, and they're, like I said, they're usually recognizable by the WWA call, but not always. Sometimes they don't have the luxury of getting a special call. And then everyone else is a chaser. And the job of the chasers is to go work all of these activator stations. And one of the things that was kind of strange at the beginning, but turned out to be one of the real factors of success, was that as a chaser, you're allowed to work each activator once per day on every band mode. And as an activator in the beginning, we're like, gosh, all these guys are calling us and they're all dupes, because we still had this contest mindset that, oh, well, we really only want to work people once. Well, after a while, you realize it's kind of great to be able to work everybody every day, because you had this same group of really intensely active chasers. You'd show up on a new band mode in the morning and there'd be 50 guys that you would work right away, and meanwhile other people are getting pulled into the activity because they heard all this excitement on the bands and so on. So it turned out to be really great. The WWA itself, it runs from 80 through 10 meters, including the work bands. It's not a contest, so that's why it can be on the work band. It's just like a DXpedition in some ways. But in the scavenger hunt, we've got CW, sideband, and then digital. And then digital actually includes FT4 and FT8 and RTTY and PSK, all separate. So you've got all these different band modes that you can work people on. And the activator stations are generally made up of teams of operators. So here in New England, I organized a group of guys, and there were 7 or 8 of us. We were all in New England. We were all using N1W, and from our own home stations. Some of the other groups do it all from a club station, whatever, but the goal is, let's get the special call sign on. And the Hamaward Cloud does a great job of helping orchestrate everything, because to start operating in the event as an activator, you log into Hamaward, and you've got your logging software set up to send every QSO up to the Hamaward server. So when you log in, you claim a band mode, and at that point, that tells everyone else that band mode is in use, and so you can't have two activators on the same band mode at the same time. So this helps with coordination. We didn't have to have a schedule. It's just like get on the air, and if you see an open band mode, you can take it. The other thing this does is allow the chasers to also be able to see on the platform what band and modes are active right now. Now you still got to go find the guys, and HamAward helps out with this by showing the latest spots of all the special event stations. But now we're back to the scavenger hunt. It's like, okay, you wake up every day and go, how many of these guys can I go find on all the different band modes, and whether I'm using the cluster to help me or whatever. It just becomes this fun thing of, as we know in ham radio, people love to collect things, whether it's parks on the air or DXCC countries or counties or whatever. In this case, you've got a certain amount of time, 30 days or 7 days, collect as many guys, as many points as you can. And so the rankings, so every QSO that gets made gets logged to the HamAward server. The chasers can immediately see the scoreboard updating in terms of they've got a grid where they can see every band mode for all the different activators, and so they can see how they're doing on blackout bingo, filling in all the squares. They've also got a separate score listing where it counts for points. So CW QSOs count 10 points, phone QSOs count 5, and Digi QSOs count 2. I don't know how they came up with those numbers, but that's what they did. And so there are these separate competitions that are running of who's got the most CW points, who's got the most phone points, who's got the most Digi, and who's got the most combined. It's almost like in the Tour de France, you've got King of the Mountains, you've got the sprinters, and then you've got the general classification. That would be the mixed guys. And so you can kind of pick what category you want to chase in, and it's kind of fun during the course of the day to see, well, how am I doing in the rankings here, and if I go work 10 more guys, I'll move up 2 spaces or 5 spaces or whatever the case may be. So anyway, it's got all the thing of kind of the scavenger hunting of chasing and finding things, along with a live scoreboard, so you can always see how you're doing.
One of the things that strikes me is that there is a comparison with Parks on the Air, which I hadn't realized before. Because if you go to a park and activate a park, you can contact somebody on each band and each mode, which creates a lot more excitement. Because if your things dry up on 20 meters, you can move on to 40 meters, and you may talk to some of the same people. But it also creates, I think, a greater sense of community, because people start hanging around longer. They're back in the next day, because in Parks on the Air, another day, another UTC day starts it all over again. So everybody stays involved over a longer period of time. So I'm expecting that same sort of community gets generated in January over that 30 days.
Yes, actually, it's kind of funny. In January, each year, the event has started rather slowly. Of course, starting on January 1 is kind of problematic because various levels of interest in ham radio that day. But then it takes a few days, and people start catching on to what's going on, and then they get into the chase, and they're like, oh, well, I need to work some more guys, or I'm trying to find them all, that kind of thing. And so as you go through the month, it just gets busier and busier and busier. In the case of N1W, we had some people who really like to do CW. We had some people who really like to spend a lot of time on phone. We had some Digi guys, and then we had some that kind of did a little bit of everything, like me. And so you would get on a band, and people would come find you because they had worked you on 10 and 15 phone, and now, oh, here's somebody on 12-meter phone for N1W, so I'll go find him. So that's where the big pileups come from. And so it was really exciting. It was like being on a DXpedition where you could turn on the radio almost any time. And if the band was open to Europe, and it does tend to be somewhat a Europe-centric chaser audience, you would generate this small pileup of guys. And so, yes, if you ran out of people to work, you had the option of saying, well, I think I'll go to another band mode that's open right now. And if you were the first guy there for the day, off to the races. Sometimes somebody else would have already been there for a while, but there'd still be new guys turning on the radio as the world turns. So there was always something going on. Now, when we got in, once we lost propagation to Europe, sometimes it would quiet down quite a bit because there just didn't seem to be as much action coming from the West, but there were still people to talk to.
Well, don't you think that is partly due to the fact that a lot of people haven't heard of WWA, including the slow start in January? I mean, this is only a program that's been around for 2 years. And frankly, when I talked to the guys in Italy, I really didn't know that much about it. You had told me about it and you were pretty enthused, but I wasn't hearing a lot about it on air here in the US.
Yes, well, it started off kind of as this experiment. You don't broadcast something that says, hey, we're going to run a beta test of this technology, maybe it'll fail. But that first year was great, and it did build up as we went through the year. But I think they have struggled a little bit with how to promote it to the general ham radio audience around the world. Now, what's interesting is the number of activators keeps going up. So there's a lot of interest in being an activator station. So I think, let me look at the stats here real quick. Right now they have 61 activators or 61 teams that have been signed up, and there probably will be a few more before we get to the start line on June 30th. Right now there's 404 different activators, so that's the operators at these 61 teams that have been signed up. And they're from all over the place. Poland, from East Malaysia, Oman, Philippines, Spain has a bunch of teams, Italy has a bunch of teams, the United States has a number of them, Slovenia, San Marino, France has a number of teams. So again, it's just you got to go find people wherever they are. The last couple of years, the guys in Indonesia and China have really come out in a big way and put on really big efforts. I think in Indonesia's case, they were all using one call sign, so it was very scheduled. They were on the air all the time. The Chinese have a little bit different thing with the special calls, but they had multiple call signs and different groups of people operating. But it was kind of cool that you could turn on the radio almost any time and hear stations in China and Indonesia that were engaged in this. But the pileups are wild. As an activator, I found myself often listening split frequency because there were just so many people calling from Europe that they would interfere and it slowed the rate down. So that's why I say I felt like I was on a DXpedition, because just anytime I got on the radio there was mayhem, which is great. I love that. It was great practice.
Randy, clarify what is required to be an activator. And the second question to that is, do you have to have a team or can you be a solo activator?
There are a couple of the activator stations that are solo people. I think, again, that's up to go back and answer your first question first. How do you become an activator? Well, you go to Ham Award and you say, I want to be an activator. And I think they have some rules that they apply. But the thing that they're mostly looking for is that you have a team and that you can be active on all the bands and modes. Like if you showed them and said, well, I can only do 20 meter CW, that might not be the best activator because it just wouldn't kind of fulfill the desire of getting all the bands active. But anyway, you apply to Ham Award. If they accept you, then you select your own team. So you can kind of run your operation however you want. What you do is you tell the Ham Award people, here's my list of operators. Those operators are given a login. They're also given instructions for how to connect their contest logging software to the Ham Award. Ham Award has a sidecar application that takes the QSO data that's broadcast from the logging software and forwards it up to the Ham Award server. And so that's how Ham Award gets all the data that the QSOs are being made and so on. That's how they know if two stations are on the same band mode at the same time, that kind of thing. But to be an activator, once you're signed up and once you have the Ham Award sidecar application running, you log a QSO just like you always would with your logger, and it'll automatically show up at the cloud. Occasionally in the early days, I would have a case where I'd forgotten to start it or done something wrong, and the active chasers, they're watching the scoreboard, and I would work some guys, and they would call me back 5 minutes later and go, hey, your QSOs are not showing up on the scoreboard. And I would look and go, oh, yes, it's my fault. So there are some tools that the Ham Award people have to allow us to, if we make mistakes or the connection's lost or something, we can recover from things. But that just gave me a good indication of just how serious the chasers were. They wanted their credit for making the QSO.
Well, first of all, there's real-time scoring in action, which I love. I think that's a great trend. Do I have to have a special call sign or can I use my own call sign?
Well, as a chaser, you would use your own call sign. As an activator, I think it helps to have something that's a little bit distinct. So when somebody's tuning around the band and you hear all these WWA stations, you know that, okay, they're in the event, I should call them. You don't have to go look it up. In the case of the USA, we can't get special calls, but we can get the one-by-ones. And so I know there's N1W, N4W, N0W, N9W. I think there might be a couple of others this year. So that's another way you can kind of tell, all right, there's something going on. It's a one-by-one call. But there are a couple of them that they just couldn't get a special call, and so in which case their N is their own.
So one of the things I misunderstood until you just explained it, I'm not logging directly into the WWA platform. I'm using, in my case, N1MM and connecting that. Is that right?
I noticed this was a little confusing on the podcast that you did earlier with the WWA guys. The platform is set up that you can log directly to the cloud if you want. You could have your web browser open and you could just log QSOs. For me, it's a lot more efficient. I think most of the guys, it's more efficient to use software that you're already familiar with, that already knows how to send CW and kind of keeps track of, you know, your totals on each band and each mode and that kind of thing. I use WriteLog in the DXpedition mode. So I'm using familiar software that I already know. I already know it's integrated with my station. It already changes bands when I, talks to the radio, does everything. And then it uses the UDP broadcast feature of the logging software to transfer QSOs over to Ham Award's application. So I think that's the norm. But you do have the option if you don't have that you can log directly to the cloud if you want.
And I take it there's no need to network with your other teammates because it's all going to funnel into WWA, and since you're assigned to different bands, different modes, and there's no crossover, nothing to worry about there.
Correct. And that's actually one of the features as well, because all the QSOs are logged. We know which activator station it was, of course, that's important. But we also know which operator it was for each QSO. And so another thing that we get to see in the background as an activator station is a stats page that shows here's how many QSOs we made on every band and every mode, and then here's who the leading QSO makers are for our team. So you end up with a little bit of internal competition among your own teammates as to who's making the most QSOs or who's carrying the load on each mode, that kind of thing.
So on that point, did you find yourself talking to the team occasionally about where your standing was and, hey, let's put some more hours in, let's see if we can get caught up, how can we maximize our points? Was that happening?
I think some of the teams did that. There were clearly some teams that were in this full blast on all the time. We took a little more relaxed approach with the N1W operation. And really, the first year, we kind of just we might chat if we ran into each other on the air, something like that. Wasn't that organized? This last year, we started a Slack channel just for the N1W operators. And that really made a huge difference. More just troubleshooting, hey, I'm done with this band. It was a way you could kind of announce things as you were going along. And we talked a little bit about how we were doing. But again, our goal was not to win anything. Our goal was just to work a lot of guys and have fun, so there wasn't that much strategy or thought put into it, but it was nice to have that back channel among the operators so we could you didn't feel like you're all by yourself.
Randy, just for perspective for all the people listening, who are the other teammates on the N1W team?
Before I fully answer that, the next WWA event starts June 30th, so it is June 30th through July 6th UTC. So at 0 Zulu on June 30th, all this craziness will start, and it goes to 2359 at the end of July 6th. So during that period, you've got all those hours to cover, and not every station's active all the time. Even N1W, we're not on all the time. But let me scroll down and find our op list because it's long enough I can't remember them all. But we have K1DC, K1JB, KC1RWR, KC1SDD, KE1J, KW1X, and then 1SS, WB1DX, WJ1U, and WK10. And that's the team right now. We'll probably pick up a couple more people as we go along. By the way, the Ham Award guys are really great in that over this next week or so, they'll be sending us some code to put on our QRZ.com page, which will have a graphic. and we'll also we'll give you pointers to the WWA scoring site and so on. And anyway, it's got a whole bunch of information on there. So if you go to one of the WWA stations, QRZ.com page, you'll immediately see what's going on. You'll get some links into the WWA event. You'll get some links to the scoreboard, that kind of thing. On my particular page, I list the operators that are involved in each year that we've done it. It's amazing, all these tools that you can bring together once you start bringing things up to a common platform. Like I said, it's, as we touched on earlier, it's the pre-publicity that's a little bit harder. But there's no question, once the ball gets rolling, it collects people.
Randy, what's the distinction between the January event and the July event, where the January event is a full month? Why is July only 1 week?
The original ones started off as 30 days. And again, because the activity builds through the whole event, you don't ever, and because you can work once per day, you never really get bored. You get worn out, because after a while you're like, gee, I got to go do something else in my life than just turn on the radio every single day, morning and night. And I think what they wanted to do was have that same level of excitement and enthusiasm, engagement, and so on, but try to do it in a little bit less time, because really a month is a long time, and especially more than for the activators, for the chasers, the really top-level chasers. They're on all. You wonder sometimes when they sleep, because this is 30 days of just almost not missing any days or bands or modes or anything. It's crazy. But the 7-day one just seemed like a good thing to do in the summer. What's been a little bit unfortunate over the last couple of years is the July one has ended up almost on the same dates as the 13 Colonies event. Now, last year we didn't really notice any conflict at all. They were on doing their thing. They had big pileups. We were often, because the 13 Colonies seems to be more U.S. centric and generally generated a lot more U.S. chasers, whereas the WWA, being more international, tended to have more international guys. So, and there may have been some people who called one or the other thinking they were getting a point for getting something for the other one. Doesn't really matter. In the end, it's just get on, work, guys, have fun, chase things. That's what it's all about. But I do wish that they didn't overlap so much, because I've had some people who wanted to operate with us but just said they were already committed to another event.
You didn't say there's a reason, but I've got to believe also having a June event, the July event, kind of keeps the energy up. Because if you hear about this in February and you have to wait an entire year, it's a long time to wait. And I know I was pretty enthused after talking to the boys from Italy, and after this conversation, I'd hate to have to wait another 6 months to try it out. One of the questions I want to go back to that I was thinking about earlier, can an activator work another activator?
Yes. So, for example, if I'm on being an activator, I'm using the N1W call sign. But there's nothing that says I can't get on the air with my K5ZD call and call a bunch of other people. So I can also get points as a chaser. And then to answer your question, yes. Matter of fact, there's actually a little bit of benefit for activators to work each other, partly just because it's kind of fun to fill in the bingo squares. And also you get points for them just like you would any other QSO. And I don't know, I found myself calling a lot of other activators just because it was kind of fun to see if I could get through their pileup.
In some ways, it's not unlike working the IARU headquarters around the world. It's kind of neat to get all of them in the log. Yeah,
it's the same. It's the same thing. It's the same thing that drives people on Club Log to get a green square for every DX for a DXpedition on every band mode. It's the same thing. I think what makes this one a little bit different is it's every day. But again, as the chaser, you have you take your fun however you want to make it. You could just say, well, I don't care about working people every day. I just want to fill in the bingo squares. Great, no problem. But the guys who want to try to show up higher in the rankings or whatever, and as we've talked about in contesting, if you score things and stack rank them, people are going to respond, and some people will be more competitive than others. But it's up to you. Now, the one thing, there's no real log checking per se in this event. You call a chaser calls an activator logs it gets sent up to the cloud. If they mislog the QSO or they bust the call, something like that, that busted call goes up and gets counted. So it's a little bit on the this is where real time is kind of good and bad, right? if you're a chaser and you don't see your QSO show up, but you see some other call, then you know they didn't get it, and you need to call them again or try to get through again. So you do have the ability to get pretty real-time feedback as to whether you were correctly logged or not. But if you're the guys who are really serious, they try to make sure that it all got counted so that they can get credit for it.
Randy, do you have any sense of where this is going to evolve to? I mean, it sounds like a very well thought out program. They've got a great computer background, software background. Is it going to take any other steps in the future?
It's hard to tell, right? We didn't have July in the beginning, and July came out of something. I will say this, the technology behind the HAMAward platform is amazing. In January, we made a total of, I think, the activators made a total of 3 million QSOs in 30 days. We had very few issues in the N1W operation. We made 80,000 QSOs just messing around. And they all got up there, and it was fun. So I think the technology platform is proven. Now it's really just a question of, okay, now that I've got all this QSO data, what are other ways to make competitions or show things? I know the HAMAward guys they would love to see other groups use this for their awards programs. Maybe not something big and long-lasting like Parks on the Air, but for example, if you wanted to run something in your country where you said, let's get everybody on the air from our country and have special event calls, the HAMAward platform is something that could be easily repurposed for that.
Anything to add before we wrap up?
To help the chasers, one of the things the HAMAward guys have done, which it's kind of interesting, twist on contesting or radio in general. They have a service that you can subscribe to. Costs a few dollars. Everything else is free, by the way. But if you want this service, you have to pay a few dollars. And they will send you a text to notify you every time a new activator station shows up on a band mode. So if you want to go off to eat dinner or something and you want to be notified when somebody shows up, they have a tool to do that. So again, it's another use of real time where it's like, okay, well, we know everything that's going on. We can tell you something that changed or that's happening that you may not have been aware of. That
Carefully designed to drive our significant others crazy.
Oh, well, I think that's a given in ham radio, isn't it? But no, it's I really enjoy it just because it's not time boxed. You can get on as much or as little as you want. It does start to kind of wear you down as you get closer to the end of the month. So I think the 1 week thing is really great. You can kind of really get into it. Again, it kind of is a little bit of a problem in the U.S. because we've got July 4th holiday in the middle of the whole thing. But it's hard to find clear dates on the calendar. So I think, anyway, it's fun. I'm glad to have the chance to talk about it. Now, what's interesting this year is, by the way, I've organized N1W in New England, but my station does not exist anymore, and it doesn't exist in Ohio either. So I will not be operating, but I'm making sure that we'll at least have a team on the air.
Well, Randy, I appreciate you taking the time to explain this today. The perspective was fantastic, as it always is from you and the contest crew. But what I'm really caught up with is the enthusiasm. You from the beginning have been super enthusiastic about the WWA, and it certainly comes across in this conversation. Thanks for taking time today.
Yeah, you're welcome. Glad to be here. And look forward to seeing everybody on the radio.
This is Kevin Thomas, W1DED with Q5 Worldwide Ham Radio. Thank you for joining us.